Mortgage lenders doled out $1.61 trillion in purchase loans to home buyers in 2021. That's the most ever recorded in a single year, smashing the previous record set in 2005. The post-pandemic housing boom saw home prices surge last year. Between October 2020 and October 2021, the average U.S. home price rose over 18%. So it's not really surprising. People want to buy homes during the pandemic. The joys of being cooped up in a tiny rental apartment space, I'm speaking now for myself, were less enjoyed with all of city life shut down, with amenities of the kinds of things you get when you rent. So people wanted space, stretched their legs, bought houses, that kind of thing.
Some of it is structural, no doubt. Some of it is demand driven. But that reference to 2005 is ominous.
Yeah.
That is. You don't want to hear 2005
and housing in the same sentence.
Yes, people watching this absolutely still remember the carnage that was wrought across the world when the U.S. housing bubble collapsed, in starting around 2005, started tipping at that point, but then really blew up in 2007, 2008, and created the financial crisis, and we are all living in a post-financial crisis world. Like, that's how significant that event was. So some of it is the pandemic, people moving, people buying bigger homes, but some of it is the Fed, and its quantitative easing over the past decade. Really has a lot of that money has flowed into housing, combined with the private equity move into housing, so it's not just people who want to stretch their legs a little bit. It's private equity funds who are looking for massive returns over returns, combined with the role that real estate now plays in international money laundering here in the United States, which we've covered here. So if you take a bunch of the housing stock at the very highest end off the market because it's just a vessel to place your illicit gains, then that's going to trickle down, so to speak, through the rest of the housing market. Which mean what does this mean in the long run if housing is exploding to a point where it's no longer even considered something that people can aspire to? Mm-hmm. Because that has been the great kind of social outlet in the U.S. for the last 100 years or so. That, hey, this deal we're giving you sucks. Like, you're going to be pretty miserable. You're going to have no authority over in the workplace, no democracy in the workplace. You're just going to work a crappy job. But when you come home, you're going to own your own home. That home is going to rise in value over time. It's going to grow wealth, and you can use that wealth to make a better life for yourself in retirement and for your kids in the future. And so you take the crappy part of the deal in order to get the other half of it. That's how we've kind of set the terms of the deal. Now what? If that's not on the table anymore, why are people going to accept the other half of the deal?
Well, you have and also we can't forget that the housing supply is artificially constricted by stupid policies all over the place that says no, you can't knock down this local diner. This was a staple of our community. This is an artistic landmark. How dare you?
Some of it is policy driven for sure.
Yeah. A lot of it is policy driven. That it's bad because
it's all policy driven.
Right, it's all policy driven. But when we have I mean, going to what you're saying, I don't know. Do you think people, that's how people view it? They're like, well, my job sucks, but my home is my castle, I guess. That's where I have that's the expression of my power and individuality and self-ownership and ownership of something that matters to me.
It was the result. I mean, so the first...
It's a very 50s way of thinking about it.
The first effort to craft that deal was really in the 20s, but the deal was credit. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get a house because there weren't really 30-year loans yet because you didn't have the government guaranteeing them. So you weren't necessarily going to get a house, but here's credit. You can buy all these cool new gadgets. You can buy a radio. You can buy a washing machine. You can just look at all this stuff that's taking you into modernity and away from the kind of
well, and that part of it has accelerated. You can buy much better stuff today than you could back then, and the price of cool stuff has gone down. That's the one. Really, TVs cost way less than they used to. You can get, for the power in this thing for what it costs.
No, for sure. Right, and so the credit deal was a cool deal for the Roaring '20s. Then it collapses in the Great Depression, and people are like, I don't like this so much anymore. And then right after World War II, you have this massive strike wave where you have like something like more than 10 million people on strike in a single year in the 1940s, really demanding a piece of the economy, a structural change. They just fought to free the world from fascism. They wanted to come home, and they wanted to be paid both in dignity and in money for that service, and they wanted to recreate a democratic world at home. Those strikes were basically put down, and in exchange, they were told, well, here's a GI Bill, and here's a home in the suburbs, and here's some racism for you as well. We're gonna give you these segregated white suburbs, and the kind of white growing working to middle class was like, okay, we'll take that deal. So, and that's where you get the 50s. And people then become homeowners in their identity. But I think you make an interesting point that what the system could offer in that deal that we were just talking about. Okay, you're not going to be homeowners anymore. We're going back to the '20s deal. You're going to get stuff. You get like gadgets, radios, except they're not radios anymore. They're like radio on the internet. You can have radio on the internet, and we're going to try to keep the price pretty cheap. How's that deal? And we'll see whether or not people are into that deal.
People like their stuff.
People like their stuff, but there's no meaning in it. You can imbue. There's
no meaning in anything.
You can kind of force meaning into a home. Mm-hmm. You can make it a proxy for the future and for your dreams. Very hard to do that with this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think nicer stuff does improve our life. We should not, it's easy to say, oh yeah, there's no meaning in this. I would be fine like reading by candlelight or something, but no, not really.
It's better to have it than not have it, but
it's like a lot better to have it. We should never underestimate how much worse things used to be.
Which goes back to the point that I was making earlier that people were angry about, that not having ready access to those things because of the supply chain hiccups and the inflation.
Yes. That's when the whole thing comes.
That's making people furious.
Yeah, you can't tell people that these things are not, that you can no longer get them at just like a click of your finger.
Right, because that's locked in. Like, no. You're not changing that in terms of that bargain.
Yeah. But we'll have more Rising right after this. Stick around.